the fight between Hastumi and Kaneda has reached its conclusion, and I might have a few controversial thoughts on the fight itself. However, as a whole, I do think it's a short but sweet fight. I think, personally, I will be referring back to this fight when it comes to determined predictions, because I think this fight is incredibly important. If there are other characters, which there most definitely will be, if there are other characters that end up using determined prediction in the fights in the future, I think determined prediction has displayed just how broken it is. Think about it this way. Kaneda should have been low to mid-diffed in this fight. That's the reality of the matter. Hastumi is just so much more powerful than Kaneda that it shouldn't even be close. Because not only does he have a martial arts disadvantage, Hastumi even has pre-initiative, which Kaneda just can't compete with. And so, this should have been a low to mid-diff. However, this is where my controversial part comes in. Because of determined prediction, it becomes a high diff fight. I think this fight is definitely a high diff fight. I think that's where my hot take is. Now, my methodology for determining what is a high diff fight isn't necessarily the damage taken. It's more so to do with how close is it? Or rather, what are the factors that determine who won and who lost the fight? If the factors are rather slim, then it becomes a high diff fight, right? If like through some bizarre chain of events, or not gonna say bizarre chain of events, if things were just slightly different, that the outcome of the fight would be different, then yeah, it definitely becomes a high diff fight. I would say mid-diff would be like, okay, look, you get a comfortable win, right? So you could win, let's say, 6 out of 10 times in the fight, right? Like, consistently, you would do better than your opponent. A low diff, you win like basically 9 or 10, or like 10 fights out of 10, basically. And so that's how I think of like low, mid, and high diff fights. And considering the ending of this fight, yeah. Like, if Hastumi had not realized at the very last second that he was in a trap, that his very idea was actually like basically Kaneda's plan the whole time, then Hastumi would have been done. It was over at that point. And it's because of that realization at the end that Hastumi was able to, at the last second, turn the winds of the fight before Kaneda had taken him out. That's very slight, right? Very, very slight. And it goes to show that maybe even since last chapter, because this fight started off with Hastumi and Kaneda moving slowly towards each other. It might have been from that moment that Kaneda's determined prediction actually started kicking in. Because he did say it's not like through specific movement, I guess. It's the way in which he acts throughout the fight. So it comes down to even like he's breathing and how he acts, where he manipulates his opponent into thinking they're making the right call when they're actually making Kaneda's call. And we can kind of see that. And it's actually kind of scary just how much of a table turner that is. Like, I think if we're going to see determined prediction in the future, it will be in some of the most... You're gonna think an opponent has won only for that to change in a second. Like, I'm beginning to actually think that determined prediction is just as broken. Actually, I think it's even more broken, than determined prediction. And that's actually kind of insane to think about. That's insane, right? But that's just how impressive Kaneda made determined prediction look. But ultimately, my man has lost, and he's gonna take an L. Like, in his first, I think this is his first actual fight in Kengan Omega. Like, Kaneda's just basically taking an L. And Hatumi's taking the win. I'm basically repeating myself when it comes to that. But now, we get to see what might be, I think, one of the most interesting parts of this. And that is that we're going to see the quote-unquote CEO of Death Dealers. Now, we technically know who the CEO is. it's the second connector, right? We know it's the second connector. However, I'm not sure if the second connector will pop up, right? It might be a different type of situation where someone else stands in as CEO, although if he does actually come, this might explain why. For example, we know the Kure clan is there, and we know the Kure clan is preparing for a fight. Like, yeah, Ryan and all these guys are not there, but it seems as though there's something more that's happening besides just the meetup. It could be that the Kengan Association does know about the CEO being at cahoots, so I don't know how you say that, cooperating with the worm or being affiliated with the worm. I think it's better to say it that way. They might know that, so it's gonna be interesting to see how this meetup ends up going now that we are done with the fight. However, yeah, that's basically it. Hopefully we'll get to see what happens in the future. In the next chapter, hopefully we'll get that won't just get skipped. And yeah, the fight was pretty great. I think I've stressed how important I think the fight is. I also think it's a high def fight. So, hey, maybe some people would disagree with me. Hey, it is what it is. But I think the margin of error was just so slim for Hastumi. Like, if it wasn't for that last minute realization where Hastumi was reflecting on his moves, like, wait a minute, is this really it? If it hadn't been for that moment, Hastumi would have straight up lost. But yeah, that's it. Like, sub, all that fun stuff, and until next time, take it easy.